Hello. Lord Vaizey is today in discussions with the House of Lords to see if there's a possibility of repealing a law. I talked about this a few days ago. Now, if you go back in January, there's a fragment of the Parthenon frieze, that thing which was sculpted between 447 and 432 BC, that was returned from Sicily to Greece. It's just a small bit jigsawed back into place in the Acropolis Museum, the newly developed Acropolis Museum. I remember it being built in Athens. I had a friend who was turned out of his house. He was promised recompense. He never got it. He died before that money was paid. So people sacrificed their lives for this new museum, and we in Britain are treating it with contempt. We're treating their sacrifice with contempt. But, as far as Liz Truss goes, that's nothing new. Now, this little fragment is about sort of this big, was returned to the Parthenon Museum and part of a long-term loan that could easily be extended. It set a precedent, and Athens in turn gave the museum in Palermo a statue of Athena without the head and an amphora, a jug. It's in effect started up a changing gallery of exhibits, set in motion a world where exhibitions can be revamped, a chance for people to see a variety of art, a cultural exchange. We can see this huge cultural heritage that we share in our own backyard. And even if there's a law, that can of course be changed. The mechanism exists now for lending large, important pieces of art, for reuniting significant artifacts wherever they may be, so that they can be seen together in context. Now, the argument that the British Museum has long advanced that the Elgin marbles can be seen in the wider context of the development of Western art through people wandering from one room to another in the British Museum, it's absurd when pitched against the possibility of their being seen in the context of the other bits of the frieze and the impedimenta from which they were wrenched, that hasn't been intact since it fell into disrepair in the 15th century when it was taken over by the Ottoman, when Athens, Greece, was taken over by the Ottoman Empire, and the Parthenon was repurposed as a mosque and then struck in 1687, I think, by a Venetian missile. I remember being asked to do a film when I was living in Greece, and Elgin was being portrayed as a sort of bogeyman, but he wasn't the first. He wasn't the first. There's a man called Richard Chandler. I don't even know if he was the first, but in 1770, he encouraged British tourists to pillage and scavenge on their grand tour to save antiquity, he said, from the ravages of what would then become the War of Independence. So in 1801, when Elgin went over to Greece as part of his mission to forge links with the Ottoman Empire, he appealed directly to Sultan Selim III, and he wrote a firman that said when they wish to take away some pieces of stone with inscriptions or figures on, no opposition shall be made. And even this document, which was admittedly ambiguous, is sort of capped because Elgin brought the marbles back to Britain. I think 2 of the ships were lost at sea, so some of the marbles are in the bottom of the Mediterranean. But he brought what he got back to Britain, and then in 1818, I think it was, the British government, under the British Museum, paid £35,000 for them, and in 1832, the British Museum built its own purpose-made hall to show these Elgin marbles. Now, 1832 was also exactly the same year when the Ottoman Empire ceded, recognized the victory of Greece and recognized the Greek state. And since that date to this, Greece has been asking for the repatriation of those marbles, which they say were taken from Greece, and whatever permission was given by an authority that didn't have authority. by foreigners. So, what we now need to do is see what means there may be to repatriate those marbles, to find some form of permanent loan so the marbles can be seen, just maybe for a short time, in their original context. Now, the British government has made it significantly harder. In 1963, I think it was, there was a British Museums Act which effectively made it impossible for a museum to send artifacts back to, or to repatriate them to the place where they had been taken. Now, the argument that they've been saved by the British Museum is reasonable, but saved for what? To languish away from their sister sculptures, to never be reunited. They could be reunited, they're not reunited. Why? So, great that they've been saved by the British Museum. Great that they were preserved by Lord Elgin, even if some of them sank at sea. But since then, they have been savagely cleaned by twits who thought they should be whiter than white. They've been damaged by rain, which came into the gallery, I think, in 2018. Photographs exist. Yes, it's reasonable to look back on our history and say we've done a lot to save these marbles. But now we should be reuniting them, and to refuse access to people who want to take a 3D photographic reference so that 3D replicas can be made. This is something which happened, I think, last year. This is absurd. We need to do everything we possibly can to make sure that there is a representative of these marbles in the Elgin gallery, because that is part of our history and part of world history, part of our culture. They informed and developed Victorian art particularly, and so we should see that in context, but also to be able to return them to Greece. Today, Lord Vaizey, himself a former DCMS minister, is starting the process to change the law. He's got robust support, but he faces a government and a ministry that simply doesn't care. If Truss doesn't care about people, I can't imagine that she cares about history. A delegation met a few days ago in Athens with a sort of financial support from a Greek philanthropist. But that delegation significantly did not include the new Minister for the DCMS, for the Digital Culture, Media and Sport, Michelle Donelan. I seriously wonder what she's been doing in the last month. I mean, the registry suggests that she has been inactive in terms of written or spoken contributions to the House of Commons. What has she been doing? Have we got another idle and good-for-nothing minister running the DCMS? I don't know. I'd love to know your opinions on this. I'd love to know your opinions on the repatriation of the Elgin marbles. Do you think they should go back to Greece? Do you think they shouldn't go back to Greece? Where should they be? But mostly, where is the Minister for the Digital Culture, Media and Sport? Where is she? What the hell is she up to? Is she another idle minister to join the other idle, arrogant ministers that we've so far seen in this present government? Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng, Rees-Mogg, Suella Braverman. Is Michelle Donelan to be put up in that group? Are we to devise our own Acropolis pediment of shame? Up to you. Let me know if you're really interested. Sorry this is so long.